Hi, this is Jonathan Weinberg, and this is Drawing with Fountain Pens. Today I'm going to talk about a pen that I think doesn't get enough attention. This is the Pilot Justus 95. Some people I think it's a bit gimmicky because it has a special nib that you can adjust. That's what the Justus refers to make it more flexible and soft or harder. And I think there's a kind of idea out there that really doesn't make a difference. But it's not so much the fact that the nib is adjustable, but how beautifully this pen writes, how reliably and without skipping, that makes it a really great pen for drawing. And it is flexy. It does have flex to it. As always, if you find this video useful, please remember to subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and it's the way to support the channel. So the Justus pen is called the Justus 95 because it debuted in 2013 to celebrate the 95th anniversary of the Pilot Namiki company. The original Justus pen with its adjustable nib came out in 1979 and looks quite different from the 95 model. The 95 model, I think, looks much more like other pens, such as Pilot's Custom 912, but with some subtle differences. So here's the pen, and of course it's all about the nib. But before we get into the nib, there's some really interesting things about this pen that make it kind of subtle, that actually, to tell you the truth, I didn't really even notice until recently. For example, it appears at first to be just black. It's very hard to see this on camera, but actually it has these very, very fine etched lines on it that are really quite elegant and different from other pens. For example, if we compare it to the pen that's probably the closest, and this is a great pen. This is the Pilot Custom 912, which has a falcon nib to it and is a great pen. I love this pen for drawing. You can see that it's exactly, it's a little smaller. Both these pens have the flat top and bottom. This is a bit longer because it has to be longer to accommodate the mechanism that allows you to make the pen soft and hard. But they're very similar. This, of course, has the gold versus the chrome. But on terms of the clip, you can see they've also done a nice job of etching in a design here that is really nice. Typical of these pens, Pilot puts the name onto the band, so it's a very conservative pen, very easy to hold in the hand, very comfortable, relatively light pen because of the resin. These are all good things. When you open the pen, that's when you see the star of the show, which is this unusual nib, which you see it's the same size, has the 912. It's a size 10 nib. The Custom A23 has a size 15 nib, which is a bit bigger, more around the size of a number 6 nib. This is more, I guess, something like a number 5 nib, I think. Anyway, so it's a bit smaller, and you see that there's this little bar that when you turn this knob, let's see if I can. When you turn this knob, you can make it either hard, which means that it has less flex, or soft, which means that it has more flex. And since the nib itself is made out of 14 karat gold, it becomes really quite bouncy when it's on the soft mode. And there is a difference, at least in the fine mode, because this is a fine pen, you can also comes in a medium, there is a difference that you can feel between those two settings. But the thing that's really cool about this bar is that, at least this is according to some people on the web, and it seems to be true when I use it, is that it works as an overfeed. It also feeds ink to the pen, and so it writes quite wet, but it doesn't skip or railroad as you would expect a flexi pen sometimes to do. And I think that's also because of the way this functions. And that's really terrific, so that when I do a drawing, as I will, the pen just writes beautifully, smoothly, and with great flow. If there's any problem with it, it might be a bit too wet, and you have to be really careful when you're drawing with it that you don't smear the ink. Now, I also use Takisumi ink, which is Pilot's own, the Iroshizuku ink. And I love that ink because I think it has a kind of flow to it, and it just always seems to work really well with pens. Sometimes pens that will skip with other ink seem to work well with it. So that's a good combo. In terms of getting ink into the pen, it uses the large converter that Pilot has. This is the Pilot 70 converter, which works really well in terms of getting ink to the pen, but I always find it a little tricky to get ink into it. The trick really is that when you put it into the ink, you have to press it a number of times, at least 6-7 times, to get a really good amount of ink into it. It holds quite a lot of ink, so that's a good thing. And actually, I guess I prefer it to a vacuum piston filler because it's so much easier to clean. So I like that part of the pen. When you're deciding which mode you want it in, it's just a matter of turning the knob. I think there's one other problem potentially, which is when you're filling it with ink and and then you wipe it, there is some potential for changing for turning it at the top here. If you dry it, you have to be careful that you don't turn it. I mean, the worst is you would just turn it back to the grade that you want it at. So in terms of weight, it's reasonably sort of weight. It's about 27 grams with the cap. It posts very securely. So, and it's very well balanced. So it's a pen that I do tend to post. When it's not posted, it is 18 grams. Just as way of comparison, this is the Pilot 912, and it's just as you would expect, a little, about almost 25 grams. And again, the difference, I think, is the mechanism, and is causing it to be slightly heavier. But they're very similar in weight and size and look, the two pens. Lengthwise, it's about 5 3/4 inches. And then when you post it, it is 6.5 inches. By way of comparison, here's the Pilot Metropolitan. Here is the 912. Here is the custom, here is the custom 823. So this is the Justus here. Just kind of, if you want to see, it's about exactly the same size as the custom 823, by the way. So this is the Pilot Justus 95, and it is fine. But now it is set to the S softest grade. I have Taki Sumi ink in it, and it is Rhodia paper. And you can see that it is like semi-flex, but it's quite a lot. It's really going from a Western fine, I think, to a medium, almost bold, broad. But the main thing here, and I never want to press too hard and ruin the nib, is no railroading at all. All right, so let's do, here it is fine. Look how that gets quite fine. And you can see there's quite a lot of variation, and there's no railroading. It is very wet, however. And on the S side, it is very bouncy, very pleasant. Is a lovely pen. Love it. So this is the hard setting. And it really does make a difference, believe it or not, though it's hard to show that. But if I press down, you can see that there's very little, much less line variation. But it's a very smooth nib. But it really is just now writing like a regular fine. And it's drier. So here I'm doing a drawing of some beautiful red gladiola using the Pilot Justus 95 on the softest setting. It's absolutely not skipping, beautiful flow, very wet ink. But it's really a pleasure to use, and I am getting some flex out of it.